So welcome back from the break, back to the second part of today's program. In case you missed it, this part of the show involves both teams going head to head in order to really fight for their viewpoint. So, to my left, I have the Justice Voices, who are arguing against the voting age of 16. And to my right, I have Flexible Ideology, who are arguing for the voting age of 16. So, how is this going to work? I'm going to ask each team to start off with a starting point, one of their arguments, to which the opposition are going to counter, and we're going to go back, so on and so forth, until I end that string of debate and I ask the other team to then come up with their starting point. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, I'm going to ask the Justice Voices, who are against voting at 16, I'm going to ask you to give your first starting argument, and I want one of you guys to read it out. And then you guys are going to be expected to respond to that, and then you guys are expected to respond to their response, and so on. So, off you go.
If teenagers should vote, even 13 years old should vote as well.
Okay, so right off the bat, the argument is if 16-year-olds are allowed to vote, why shouldn't 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds be allowed to vote?
Well, at 16, you're technically moving into college, and you're going to be planning your future ahead of you. You're doing your GCSEs, so that's a huge responsibility in itself. And so 13-year-olds, they're just like starting secondary school, so they're not as responsible as 16-year-olds.
Okay, so what they're saying is that there is a difference between 13-year-olds and 16-year-olds, a significant difference. What would you say to that?
16-year-old, they can't vote because they can't take those responsibilities. They're not adults.
Okay, 16-year-olds aren't truly adults.
When you're 16-year-old, you're picking which colleges you're going to, which is going to affect your future life, which jobs or universities you get into.
Okay, so 16 years of age is the age where you decide what you're going to do in the future of your life. So aren't you technically an adult in that sense?
Yeah, but 16-year-old, they need to have a focus on they must have the focus towards the exams. They have the GCSEs coming up. Yeah, I agree with the statement that they are technically adults, but they are still teenagers. They will make mistakes. For example, I'm turning 16 next year, so I'm 15. Isn't 15-year-olds allowed to vote as well? Because I'm technically turning 16. So isn't 16-year-olds are still teenagers basically, and that minds things are like that. Yeah. So.
Okay, so he's questioning what age is truly perfect for the voting age. Where do you draw the line? So I think from this first string of debate we can come to the conclusion that both parties believe that 16-year-olds are adults, but maybe voting should not really be their top priority at that key stage of their life. Okay, so now I'm going to ask Team Flexible Ideology. I want you to come up with one of your opening statements, and I'm going to expect a response from the Justice Voices.
Young people are far more involved with current affairs. They're up to date with current affairs, whether it's like celebrities or music. And if they do vote at 16, more news will pop up on their phones about it. We will end up with a generation interested to shape our future.
Okay, so it's important that 16-year-olds get the vote in order to build on a generation that is interested in politics. What would you say to that?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Okay, so Rafa, would you like to repeat it again?
As young people are far more integrated with current affairs, so they're up to date with it. They have phones, so they can look on their social media. There's news that pops up, they can read it and they can learn more about like politics and voting. So, yeah.
So what Rafa is saying is that at the moment, young people like yourselves don't really have the opportunity to get involved into politics, but giving the vote to 16-year-olds will give us this chance to get involved. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, but who will give them the message or something like that, email or like something like that to vote? who give them that chance.
Oh,
like,
so you're trying to say that 16-year-olds won't be informed enough?
no, they won't be informed enough.
Okay, so he's saying they won't be informed enough to come to a good decision. So why should they be given the vote?
Okay, but in school, 16-year-olds, they learn a lot about politics in, like, for example, PSHE or something, and then that technically means that they will understand more about politics and how it works, and they are technically mature enough to do.
Okay, so in response to your idea that 16-year-olds aren't informed enough, here we have Team Flexible Ideology saying that in school, 16-year-olds, through things like PSHE, we are actually taught a lot. So what would you say to that?
16 years old can be easily influenced by propaganda or their parents.
So 16-year-olds can be easily influenced. So if you're giving them the vote, technically you're giving it to their parents. What would you say to that?
Yes, they might be easily influenced, but voting is meant to be for your own voice, it's your own opinion. And yeah, you may learn about politics from somebody who's their point of view. You might be influenced by that, but you're still learning about it, and it's your own voice. What you think your opinion is, you should be able to vote that.
Okay, so influenced or not, at the end of the day, your vote is your voice. So what would you say to that?
So due to the fact that in the last general election, only 44% of age between 18 to 24 voted, it shows a lack of participation. So, it shows that yes, the 18 to 24-year-old are they are voting in it, but they're not making that much difference.
Okay, so I think what CM has come onto there is a new point to start a new string of debate. Okay, so what the Justice Voices are saying is, from the statistic which he provided, that the younger part of the current electorate, I believe he said 18 to 24, they're not really getting involved. What would you say to that?
Well, in Scotland, 16-year-olds are allowed to vote, and the first official political contest, so when they first let 16-year-olds vote, 80% of under 18s voted, and so that shows that there is a huge turnout, and 16-year-olds or under 18-year-olds are interested in this as soon as they release that law in Scotland.
Okay, so once again we have a clash of statistics here.
Yeah,
so here Rafa is saying that in Scotland they do allow 16-year-olds to vote, and in the first political contest there was a turnout of 80% of the young people. So they are interested.
Right now, we're not in Scotland, this is London, so I don't think, since 16-year-olds are allowed to vote in London,
So
like it's Scotland, they are allowed. I don't.
yeah, no, but she's using that as an example. She's saying, look at the effect it has in Scotland, so why shouldn't it be allowed in England?
Can read it.
Well, I think young teenagers such as 16 are still not mature enough. The reason why 18-year-olds can vote, because they are mature, they're officially adult, and in England you must 16-year-old they can get married, but only with parents' consent. So they can get married, but if their parents don't agree, so they can't get married. So they don't have independence yet. Not mature enough. Our brains can mature till about 30s. In the age of 16-year-old, young people don't usually have good behavior, and our brains are still growing. Statistics shows that percentage of young people taking drugs around the perimeter of this age is 11%, of which 16-year-olds young people take more than any other age groups.
Okay, so he's coming back to the point that 16-year-olds aren't truly mature enough to be able to place through a vote. Hold the mic.
I think you're just assuming that all 16-year-olds aren't mature enough. I mean, there's 18-year-olds in university that party, and permission is more for security reasons, whereas voting is your own right.
Okay, so in response to that, she's saying that you can't assume that all 16-year-olds behave in the same way, as there may be some 21-year-olds who still aren't really that mature. And coming back to the idea of permission, parental permission, that's more for security reasons. than the younger person not being able to come to their own decision. Okay, so I think I'll start a new string of debate there. So since you started the last string, I'm going to come back to you guys. I want you guys to come up with another one of your key points, and I'm going to be expecting a response from the Justice Voices.
"16-year-olds are allowed to go to the army, so why shouldn't they be allowed to vote?"
Okay, so if 16-year-olds are allowed to go into the army, I mean joining the army is a huge thing, so if they're allowed to join the army, why are they not allowed to vote?
Because they're still in college and they don't pay bills.
So sorry, can I get that again?
They're still in college and they don't pay bills.
Okay, so we have some responsibilities that they do have, but some responsibilities that they don't have. So what would you say to that?
They don't pay bills, but whatever age like you get a job, you do have to pay tax, and that requires some type of maturity. And if you're in the army, you're 16 is quite young and they're quite strong, and they obviously they, like here it says that 16-year-olds understands the difference between right and wrong. This also means you can get arrested at 10 years old. If they understand the difference between right and wrong, they will also understand how to vote, and that also links back to the army as well.
Okay, so the fact that young people understand the difference between right and wrong, shouldn't that suggest that they can understand how to vote? They do have a choice and they know how to make their own choice?
16 years old don't know anything about life yet.
Can you give me some more information to back that up?
Like, they still cannot live alone. They don't pay taxes. They don't have good jobs. They don't know when to go through hard things.
Okay, so 16-year-olds, they haven't been through the hard stuff in life yet, like many older people may have already been, and that's why they don't deserve the vote. Do you have a response to that? Yeah?
How you said they haven't experienced much in life. Well, when you do your GCSEs at 15, 16 years old, that is quite challenging for quite a young age, and obviously you're getting some more information and you're getting smarter through that. And also, like I said, the army, that's quite a stressful thing to be a part of, so they obviously have been contributing in hard things like that.
Okay, so do you guys have a response to that?
Not every 16 years old go to the army.
Okay, so not every 16-year-old joins the army. I think switching from points here, but go on.
Not every 18-year-old lives by themselves.
Oh, that was a good comeback. Okay, so we had a very interesting few strings of debate over here in our second phase. Both sides coming out with some strong points that you could tell that they felt quite passionate about. So that brings us to the end of our second phase, and remember, after the break we do have our third phase, the judging round, where the judges will be questioning the contestants, so make sure you get ready for that, and the judges will also come out with their results as to who has won today's Best Speaker Award and which team has won the debate. So make sure you stay tuned for that after this short break.